What's the most insane rich person behavior you've ever seen? My friend's dad got a summer tennis membership at this fancy club because his kid played on the club's traveling team, JRS. Could play for basically nothing. He got invited to play poker with the guys on a random Wednesday, and they sat down and decided to order some wine. The waiter hands the list over to one of the old guys and the guy says no, show us the real wine list. Sure enough, there was a very bougie version that was by special request. Ever since my friend told me that story, I have always wondered what special privileges exist for these PPL, if you know to ask. I was at a rich guy's house to service his not one but two generators. I roll up to the call box to let him know I was there. He buzzes me in. On the way down his cobblestone driveway I passed by his garage. This garage was unique in that it had a basketball and tennis court on top of it. Upon closer inspection I saw that it was basically a mini parking garage. The dude had 13 cars in it. A Chevy Suburban, Mini Cooper, Subaru Outback, and other grocery getters. On the second level down were 2 town cars, a Bentley and a Rolls Royce. Off to the side were a Bentley and a Lincoln stretch limo. This guy took me through 4 mechanical rooms to get to his generators. We go back up to where my truck is parked. While wearing sandals and a Rolling Stones t-shirt he points to the right and says something I'll never forget. If you need to use the bathroom it's behind the Bentley. Most nonchalant shit I've heard. Guy hosting a private music festival on his land had his car keys taken off of him for being too drunk to drive. He disappeared and then 20 minutes later a very low flying helicopter goes overhead pretty much clipping the treetops swerving about all over the sky. It gets lower and dumps down a bit too fast on the ground. Engines cut out and out he gets flipping everyone off as he heads back towards his house. Pure crazy. This guy cutting me off on the street, ramming the right side of my car. We got out of the car and this guy just handed me a €6,500 check without discussing. The damage he caused was only €200. Damn. I worked at a summer camp that had a lot of wealthy families' children attending. At the request of the parents, a helicopter pad was installed nearby so that they didn't have to drive the 2 hours to see their kids at the end of camp. I assume that this was paid for by one of the parents, but can't say for sure. Additionally, many of these parents would tip the camp counselors that looked after their kids for the summer. While I never got anything, my kids were on scholarship. Some friends of mine were tipped MacBook Airs, hundreds of dollars and plane tickets to come visit and stay with the families whenever they wanted, sometimes from crazy distances, like flying an Australian to LA. At the beginning of coronavirus and the shutdowns, my friend, who teaches at a private school in DC, had a small group of parents approach her and ask her if she'd be interested in tutoring the couple's children while they all isolated themselves on their yacht in the Caribbean. She was to join them on the yacht and teach 5 days a week. She didn't end up doing it for whatever reason, but that right there was probably one of the most lavish ways to spend money I had ever seen to date. Mark Zuckerberg building a wall on his property in Hawaii to have the beach just for himself. It blocks the view and the breeze of the sea. The kicker here is that it's totally 100% illegal. All beaches in Hawaii are public property by state law, and there are regulations about providing easements, but he's wealthy enough that he's been able to buy himself around it so far. Some honeymoon clients insisted that they would not sleep on a mattress that someone else had slept on, so we had to buy a new mattress for each hotel they stayed in. Each mattress cost over $5,000 and they stayed at 5 hotels. They used each mattress for a couple of nights only, and then we had to remove the mattress from the hotel and dispose of it. Was in Las Vegas, and at the casino I went to, there was a portion of the high rollers area that you could see. It was just slot machines. The slot machines were $100 a play. I watched as an otherwise ordinary looking older lady played this slot the way my grandmother played the penny slots. In the few minutes I was watching, she dropped enough money to buy my truck and I don't think she blinked. I worked at a country club. One of my coworkers lost his apartment because of some fire. One of the members, just one, paid for a 6-month lease and replaced everything the coworker lost in the fire. Blew my mind. Not me, but one of my wife's colleagues had a daughter who had chosen to get married at a local venue that about 3 months before the wedding happened to appear as a location in a very well-known series of movies about a certain boy wizard. Well, about a month before the wedding they had a call from the venue asking if they'd mind moving their wedding back a month. Naturally they said no. All the invites had been sent. Family were coming from various international locations and had booked flights and accommodation etc etc. To cut a long story short, they did end up moving their wedding back a month. Why? Because the person wanting their venue had a child who was besotted with said boy wizard and their birthday happened to fall on the original wedding weekend and wanted their birthday party to be at that location. They agreed only after the rich person offered to pay for their wedding, but also the cost of rearranging all the flights, accommodation, florists, photographers and all the other associated costs, and the mortgage on their recently bought house. It ran to £100,000, but to the rich people was apparently water off a duck's back. The co-founder of Microsoft had a 414-foot long mega yacht with a basketball court on one of the decks. Every now and again a basketball would go overboard. So what did he do? Hired a guy to follow the yacht in a smaller boat to pick up the basketballs that escaped. Some high-profile guy reserved 2 entire high-speed train wagons for himself, his family and his bodyguards. The other passengers who already paid had to leave, and before that tried to pay a high school friend of mine something like 5,000 €10,000 euros for her to spend 2 weeks with his daughter so she wouldn't feel alone during their holidays in the local ski resort. One of the owners of the company I worked for was looking at his bank statement and saw some extra fees that he thought were excessive, so he called the bank to see what it was all about. I guess the person at the bank couldn't explain the reason for fees, was short with him, and wouldn't waive them. So he decided to close all his accounts with that bank, which involved paying off the rest of his multi-million-dollar mortgage in cash. So, he basically had enough cash sitting in his checking account to pay off his full mortgage, but preferred to take out a mortgage rather than pay for his house in cash. When the mortgage department at the bank realized what happened and how much interest income they were going to lose out on, they tried to get him to come back and refinance, but he said no. Same person also accidentally received a neighbor's Bloomingdale's bills in the mail. The store had the address wrong, didn't read the name on the bill, and assumed it was his wife's, and paid that bill for years. So he ended up paying thousands of dollars of his neighbor's shopping bills without knowing. And when they figured it out, he told the neighbor to consider it their Christmas present. Knew a guy who bought land and built an apartment there with a swimming pool and a basketball court. All he wanted was an apartment complex for himself, and he hired the people he needed to make it happen. Now there's an apartment in my city with no listing, but if you ask him to rent an apartment he'll let you streetwise. They're either free or cheap depending on his mood. I knew a guy that bought a building just so he could evict the person renting space there. Yes, it was all inherited money, and yes, everybody fucking hated that guy. Edit. The purchaser is the guy everyone hated. He came from generations of wealth and thought it made him superior to everybody else. Second thing, I never met the guy that got evicted. Apparently he wasn't respectful enough and had to be taught a lesson. My dad, when we still had a relationship, saw fines not as punishments, but as the payment to be able to do things others cannot. Edit. Didn't expect a comment moaning about my dad to become my most ever upvoted thing ever, so thank you guys. D3. While waiting for my divorce trial, I asked my lawyer about parking at the courthouse for lawyers. It was so expensive to park there with a 2-degree limit. I assumed it was free for them, but I was wrong. He said it's the same for them, so his office have decided to just pay for parking by the hour and eat the cost of the daily tickets for not moving their cars to a new spot every 2 degrees. He said it's a racket for the city. When they first passed the 2-hour parking only, they tried to comply and move their cars, but was found to be impossible. Court is court, it gets delayed, and a judge doesn't give a crap if you need to move your car. So they spend thousands every month in parking fines and the city takes in the dough. My friend scored a brand new stainless steel 6-burner oven on Facebook Marketplace for pennies on the dollar because some rich people bought a summer house in a nearby wealthy tourist town and didn't like the appliances because they were the wrong color. They sold them all for well under what they were worth and bought all new ones. The ones that came with the house hadn't ever been used. It had been renovated prior to sale and everything was brand new. Worked at a luxury brand jewelry store. Chinese woman comes in with her husband in a pissy mood. Walked right past me when I greeted them. Undeterred, I followed them and continued to make conversation. She starts asking questions about things in cabinet. Bought everything I pointed to without looking at price tag or batting an eyelid. Bought over $33k in less than 10 minutes. However, once I started gift wrapping everything, her and her husband sat there demanding free things and threatened not to give us business again unless we produce the best, most expensive freebie we could. Management team literally scrambled to give her a bunch of free stuff. $33k isn't much in luxury retail, but every single one of her visit over the years has been apparently big ticket, so it adds up lol. When I was a bartender, this guy showed up, 30 something, suits, looked like an asshole, and asked that I sold him and his friends, 5 people, all the champagne I had. I said no, I would sell him 2 bottles and he could order more after. I sold him the bottles, went for my smoke break, and 10 minutes later I saw him and his friend go out in the street carrying as much bottle as they could and start smashing them on the road, screaming and looting. Turn out my coworker agreed to sold them the entire stock and bring the case to their table in exchange for a nice tip. So here they were, smashing bottle of champagne, running in and out of the bar to get more. We managed to stop them and call the cops, but they took their car and ran off before the cop showed up. The bill. 3 of them paid €20 with their credit card and one gave around 5,000 cash. There was a story on Reddit ages ago about someone who had a very rich roommate. The roommate would wear brand new socks every day and then throw them away and buy new ones instead of washing them. Eventually he developed a rash on his feet because of all the chemicals on the brand new socks. I worked in club in Ibiza, and when you order like 5 bottles of champagne you get a show. Hot girls in bikinis come with sprinklers and bottles, so a lot of nights people order massive amounts of champagne just so they look good in front of other rich people, and there comes a point where there ain't any more room to put the bottles. A lot of times the case was that they didn't even drink champagne, but regular vodka, Red Bull or similar. I have a friend and she and her family are ridiculous rich people. I'll start by saying that they are incredibly nice people and very generous to those around them. They just do not live in the real world when it comes to money, and they forget that other people don't live like they do. Her mom redecorates their whole house 2 or 3 times a year. I'm talking new furniture, fresh paint, new flooring, new decorative items etc. She really likes to decorate for holidays, and she buys all new stuff every holiday. My friend has basically hooked everyone she knows up with full Christmas setups because her mom gets new every year. They have pets, but they personally don't physically take care of any of them. They have people who do it. They have gorgeous fish tanks that they have a guy who comes in to care for them multiple times a week. They have a bird room which has multiple exotic birds that has someone who cares for them every day. They have someone else who cares for the dogs and cats. They have a team for the horses because they have horses even though no one rides. Her parents will get her caterers for just random nights. She will literally open her door to surprise catering, and she will have to call people to come eat food. Last week I went and had dinner with her because they had a full prime rib dinner complete with appetizers, soup, salad, sides, wine, and dessert for $15 to $20 delivered to her house because it was Wednesday. I'm sure I could come up with more. I once worked in a cell phone department at a retail store, and we were supposed to sell a certain amount of phone insurance plans every day to meet our quota. There was this one lady who just bought 4 of the latest iPhones for herself and her family. I offered her insurance plans and she basically said there's no point because she would just buy new phones if anything happened. This was in 2018, so 4 new top of the line iPhones were about $1,000 each. I tried to push the insurance plans a bit because $4,000 in sales with no insurance or add-ons hurt my numbers, and $4,000 is a huge investment. So my pitch went along the lines of, what would you do if the phone broke or you cracked the screen? She got so irritated that she bought 4 more phones as replacements just to prove she didn't need insurance. Then she proceeded to berate my selling skills and laughed in my face about being a broke college student working to pay tuition. Came up in conversation with a coworker and she overheard. I wouldn't have been upset about any of this up until this point. However, after I finished setting up her new phone, she went over to an uncompeted section of the store and dropped her brand new phone, shattered the glass screen. Then she came up to me and told me to set up her new one. I felt really disrespected, but I had no choice. I couldn't refuse the request of a customer who just spent $8,000 at our store. Retail is truly hell. An international student from my partner's university bought a plane ticket from Spain to Canada to go to a music festival with some friends. She bought it on a Thursday. The festival was the next day and she would be back on Sunday. First class ticket. There was definitely a lot of digits in that purchase. Casually crossing the Atlantic to see some friends this weekend. While folks have mentioned Trump and his antics, I submit Mike Bloomberg entering the Democrat primary months late and getting a huge rise in the polls by spending $500 million and then tanking himself at his first debate, going on to only win American Samoa and then dropping out. This guy came to the luxury hotel I was working in with his 6 to 7 years old daughter and her cousin/babysitter. She was probably 14, not much older. Anyway, the guy stayed out all day sightseeing and left the two alone in the room with loads of cash at their disposal. The younger girl would order 1 scoop of ice cream and give the waiter a $50 tip. Call again 10 minutes later and here we go, another $50. We started rotating doing the constant room service and everyone got their share, but still got to the point where it was a bit embarrassing. There's this politician in our area who runs campaigns and he even has his own shopping franchise. His son is about 3 years older than me. He wears like 15 kgs worth of gold chain around his neck as well as a bunch of diamond earrings and rings too. One time I saw him drinking tea at a cafe with his friends and showing off as usual. When the waiter gave the bill to them, the dude literally took off one of his minor rings and handed it to him. Then he shooed him off like he was some stray animal with real disrespect that just made me sick and mad on the spot. I work for a fancy pizza shop and I've seen people call in to order over $300 worth of pizza to pick up. They come from other cities and want it ready when they arrive. I watched a man eat 1 small slice from each of the 12 pizzas he ordered, then throw the rest out in our garbage bin. We assumed he was taking it home to a party or to his employees or something, but nope. He just wanted to try every topping combination. Left a $100 tip though, so that was nice. I had a friend who had to be rescued from kidnappers by the State Department. He went on vacation. He was there several months, somewhere like Cambodia or something. He spent all his time doing drugs and going to clubs, so inevitably someone gets the idea to kidnap him. He wound up locked in a shack sobering up while they demanded money. Whoever manages his trust was well connected enough to make some calls and the kidnappers let him go when a local dignitary showed up with a fuckload of personal security. I had a buddy in the military that was a trust fund baby. He literally only served as a bullet point on his resume as he wanted to go the political route. Which is fine. I served for a bullet point, but just the amount of care he put into his work ethic was abysmal. He paid dudes like $1K to take his duty multiple times. He had a brand new Mercedes or BMW or whatever nice European car every few months. I remember he ran out of gas on base and just left his car, went to the car rental place, rented a car, then drove off base to buy a new one. Everyone on our team hated him. So much so that my team leader no shit stuck him in a cave in the middle of Afghanistan when we deployed, just so he didn't make an ass of himself or get anyone killed. Last I knew he was working at the Pentagon. When I went there for work, I saw him and he looked like he was just a secretary or some shit, but tried to make it seem like he was a bigger deal than he was. Literally had people calling him "Hey Guy" because no one cared to learn his name. But everything is for assume bullets. He doesn't care about money. He cares about power. He's a narcissistic cunt whom I imagine will be a very successful politician soon, because politicians all have the same exact personality as him. I used to work at an Equinox gym. At the smoothie counter, there was a man who came in nearly every day, complained about how he was always too busy to remember to pack his gym bag, but luckily they sell clothes here, and would buy a full set of gym clothes from the retail section. A full outfit would run more than my monthly rent. I talked to the folks in the retail section a lot. Apparently, he never returned anything. Was at a pretty nice restaurant in Mexico City. A guy walks up with 2 dogs and nods at the waiter. Waiter comes back with a beer and 2 massive raw steaks. Guy drinks his beer as his 2 dogs each enjoy a raw $50 filet mignon. Guy walks off into the night. Boss move. When I was in college, the guy across the hall from me in the dorm went away for a weekend and didn't come back for almost a week. When he finally got back, he said he had been detained by the FBI. He had a friend of a friend who was super rich and flown their group to Miami to hang out at a suite in the Four Seasons hotel, not landscaping. It turns out the rich kid, who had a $40,000 a month credit card limit, was stealing from his dad's business to pay for his overages because $40,000 a month was not enough for him. The FBI tracked him to the Four Seasons and broke up the party. Full disclosure, not sure if it was the FBI, but that's what I remember being told. I had a friend who needed to buy her first car. She was living downtown in a major city, but got some internship in the suburbs and needed reliable transportation. She'd never bought a car before, and her rich dad just wired her some money to cover the purchase. I swear to God, after a few days and finagling with her bank, she filled a bag with close to $30,000 cash and took it on the subway to a car dealership. Honda, if I remember right. This girl wasn't a snob, just not experienced in these things. She ended up paying cash for the car on the spot, and, because of course, she also left the dealership with a new boyfriend.